Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian time.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best-fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Welcome to Nature Back, Chris.
Sarmo, it's great to be with you.
Tell us in a few words first, what do you do on your daily job?
Yeah, so we're a strategic communications advisory firm. We're based in Washington, D.C., where there's obviously a lot of great things happening right now. And we work with climate organizations advocating for better policy, climate tech, clean energy companies that are really working on these breakthrough technologies and innovations that are going to help with the energy transition. And we help them tell their story and be effective to get better policy and sway public opinion.
Looking at the US from the European perspective, let's say the news flow has been strange at best. How do the is the environmental scene actually manages in the current kind of political climate?
It's certainly a challenge. Everything has changed. It's been a whipsaw from a couple of years ago when the United States was passing the most consequential climate bill in the history of possibly the world. And now, a few years later, we're seeing that being rolled back just a few months ago. And the current administration using every lever possible to attack clean energy, whether it's through permitting, pulling permits for wind projects that had already been approved and gone through the rigorous process. Whether it's making it harder on federal land to get solar sited. It's just one thing after another. And there's a few select energy technologies that the current administration favors. And if you're not one of those, it's a very tough time. Not to mention all the rules regarding environmental protection being scaled back, they're firing federal workers who are have been doing the work of keeping water clean and air clear. And so there's a risk of rollbacks there. And it's pretty much a full frontal attack on every place you could imagine. They're coming after it.
Mm. You mentioned few clean energy sources are still okay. What are those?
Nuclear, which is controversial, but we're seeing a lot of old nuclear sites being restarted. And this is largely driven by the need for data centers to power AI, although the nuclear power is going to take many years for that to even get started. But geothermal is a really interesting one. There's advanced technologies that are being developed and are really on the precipice of being able to provide energy and heat in places that you wouldn't think you could get geothermal, because now there's the ability to drill deeper. And no matter, eventually you're going to get heat the deeper you drill down to the earth. It's just a matter of how expensive is it to do that, and can you bring the cost curve down? But there's a lot of promising technologies and companies doing that work right now. Geothermal, nuclear, really those are the two big ones. Obviously, fossil fuels are the number one priority for this administration, and there's extreme efforts being made to keep coal plants open that wouldn't financially survive on their own. So it's really it's going backwards.
Mm. But it's not the only US. I think the fossil fuels have, last year had a massively successful year around the world. I mean, for me, probably the biggest kind of shocking headline was when I was reading about Southeast Asia, how there was a heat wave in the neighborhood, and they were restarting old coal plants to get electricity for all the ACs to cool down the rooms during the heat wave. For me, it was like mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's interesting when you cite an example such as that one, where here in the U.S. a lot of environmentalists and climate folks they were really happy when the previous administration put a pause on LNG exports, for example. But when you look at the bigger picture, they're actually, if the choice is between LNG and coal plants, I think you'd rather have LNG in some of these places when it net climate impact. So it's kind of complicated sometimes, and it depends on where you are on what the best choice might be.
Absolutely. Um, how do you manage, with strategic communication efforts under the full frontal attack?
Well, there's always opportunity. Certainly in crises, there's opportunity, and I think there's been a real period of reassessing. The reason why we have this current administration is because more Americans voted for this administration. And so where is the disconnect between everything that happened that was good just in the last few years on climate and clean energy? Where's that disconnect between the legislation that was passed and the messaging from the community at large to the voters? And clearly there's a disconnect. And so I think this has been a real time of assessment, of reassessing what we say, how we talk about things. I think there's been a big shift to focusing on the cost of electricity and how that impacts every household, every small business in the country. Whereas previously, it's all about, half a degree temperature increase for the world and more intense storms and fires and floods, and all that is true. But if you're thinking about it from a strategic messaging point of view, that's going to resonate with a busy family trying to just take care of their kids, or focused on getting by day to day. The big existential long-term things don't really hit the mark for them. Mm-hmm. But if you can tell them that by cutting back on clean energy, your electric bill is going up 30%, then that matters on a month-to-month basis because everyone's got to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. So there's been a real assessment of, okay, maybe the way we talked about this before hasn't been working. And if we're going to win elections and then be able to have people in position to pass better policies that will advance the energy transition, then we need to be more thoughtful about how we reach people.
Kind of focus more on short-term and more understandable, statements or the wordings compared to the 5 generations from today.
That's right. And there's been a lot of news recently with Bill Gates ahead of COP in Brazil, just talking about, admittedly saying it's a strategic pivot, focusing less on near-term emissions, but on impact on human life. And that's set off a little bit of a controversy, but it's interesting when you read the memo that he put out, and it's hard to disagree with a lot of what he's saying, but it is still a stark shift and really seems emblematic of the moment that we're in and have been in for most of 2025.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, seeing, like late October, the Caribbean, I don't know, they say once of the lifetime storm, but, we've got those once in a lifetime things in increasing speed during our lifetime.
Indeed, the storms in the Caribbean, the fires earlier this year in Los Angeles, the floods and tornadoes that hit the middle part of the country with seeming regularity. It's just these extreme temperatures, hot and cold. It's just it's one thing after another. But I don't think the average person, they might think climate has a role in that, and we know it does. That we're not disputing the facts here. We're just talking about how to talk about it in an effective way to get to the end goal. And it's less of a direct connection in terms of how people vote.
Absolutely. And I think in general, most readers, most listeners of this podcast also probably understand the climate's role in all of this a bit more than maybe the average voter of certain political parties. But how to get that message across? Is it in this, post-truth society they want us to believe exists? Is it even possible?
Well, I think it's not possible if climate and clean energy industry people are not pushing back, because there's a lot of misinformation, and there's an ecosystem of misinformation that really reaches a lot of people, and it's powerful. So take the wind industry, offshore wind in particular. That's a dying industry in the United States right now because the administration is killing it. They're saying all these mistruths, falsehoods, lies that I won't repeat here because they're not worth repeating. But they tend to stick, and support for offshore wind has dropped by about 15% in the last 6 to 8 months. And so, if you lose public opinion, then elected officials are going to follow public opinion in most cases. And so, therefore, there's no hope of getting better policy and having the industry actually not just forget about thriving, but surviving in this moment. So I think you really have to have a strong counter to the misinformation and repeat that over and over again. And it's really incumbent upon these companies and these leaders, entrepreneurs doing great work as well in their particular area to not be confrontational, but just to assert the facts.
Mm. So maybe the few advices for the audience of green tech entrepreneurs or green tech investors out there, or the green policymakers, have better slogans, repeat them more often.
That's part of it, and don't miss opportunities to make news when you have good news to share, and that can actually drive a positive message forward. I will say, getting back to maybe your earlier question of how are we dealing with this, I think we've still seen a robust investment landscape for climate tech, for clean tech. Maybe not the highest it's ever been, but I think there's still, the train has left the station on this. There's so many opportunities. There's so much worth investing in. These are some of the best investments you can make if you're someone looking to build a portfolio. And not everything's going to pay off and work eventually, but there is a resilience to these entrepreneurs who they're going to see these challenges and then just try to meet them and surpass them. So that's the one thing I love about the sector is that these entrepreneurs are like, you can't stop them. They're going to continue working and trying to find a solution and get it done no matter what it takes.
Mm. I mean, in general, is there any kind of, silver coins or silver bullets silver bullets are used to kill somebody. Silver coins is for the good ideas, right?
Silver linings or.
So, I'm sure that, one thing probably some entrepreneurs are doing, they're just moving something away from the US just to avoid the potential. I guess that if you're, European windmill producer, you just refocus your efforts in current climate. But if you're a, US-based green tech entrepreneur, you probably just try to live through the situation.
Yeah, and you have to find the opportunities where there's an opportunity without the support of the federal government in order to succeed. That's not going to be wind right now because the permitting is complex, but that's just an example. But there's so many different other climate solutions being developed and advanced, whether it's related to agriculture or food or cement, like building. There's transportation. There's so many different sectors, and it's just really incredible to see the progress being made. And some of these are going to succeed and be really transformational.
Absolutely. In one of the recent episodes was a US entrepreneur who was doing their solar for residential buildings. And of course, it wasn't based on the central government support. It was based on the lower energy bills, which clearly creates demand in despite political storms left, right, or middle.
That's right. I mean, there's a demand for cheaper, clean power, and one of the benefits that the industry has going for it right now, even with all the efforts to stop the growth of the industry, is that if you want to add more electrons to the grid in the United States, the fastest and most affordable way to do it is solar, and you can get that up in a couple of years. Whereas natural gas takes at least 5 years if you even get the turbines, which are hard to find right now. Takes many years to get those. Nuclear, we mentioned, takes a decade. It's very, very long process or more. Yeah. And so by comparison, solar is very appealing for, even if you don't even care about climate, if you just want cheaper and you want you want it sooner, you want more capacity, because we are seeing for the first time in decades growing demand for electricity. And it is because largely it's largely because of AI and data centers, but it's also because we're electrifying more things, whether it's cars or other appliances or whatever we're using in society. So there's just more demand. So we have to meet that demand somehow.
Absolutely. One of the interesting episodes we recently were discussing about the grid decentralization efforts with one US-based investment firm, how they're seeing huge demand for anything which is enabling decentralized electricity production or consumption to avoid the kind of central grid challenges because of the increasingly growing demand. The grids are just failing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things here. One is, with more people getting electric vehicles and having solar panels on their roof, like there's a virtual power plant system that is decentralized, and there's a lot of opportunity there. We need to provide more incentives, or maybe change the incentive structure for utility companies to take full advantage of that. There's also, there's a real push to reform the permitting system in the United States, which is just makes no sense. It takes way too long. A lot of it has good intentions in trying to protect the environment in a lot of different places. But, if we want to get more clean energy on the grid, we need more transmission. And you can't get transmission built right now. It's just very, very challenging. So, r- reforming the permitting process is something that is ongoing in Washington, having that conversation, trying to see what kind of deal can be struck. But it's a really critical part to adding to capacity. There's so much clean energy waiting to be, it's just sitting in a queue and just can't get online. And so we really need to be able to find a way to deal with that.
And that problem is global. I mean, I was planning to have a small solar farm up at our summer place, and the local electricity producer was asking for €1 million to connect it to the grid. So I was like, no, not going to happen.
Yeah, that should not be the way it is to try to get something like that connected.
Yeah. The one question, even bigger than the US, but linking that kind of the global climate situation and the communication side. Often in these episodes, I've been talking with people about how basically, I would say the situation with the global climate change is quite hopeless for people, at least some of the people who are, looking deeper into it and understanding, more of the consequences and the situation where we are and looking at the numbers, how bad the situation is. How could people find, more hope in it? Where's this good narrative in the climate change which could actually help to change things?
Well, I'd say look at China and all they're putting into they're just like moving leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else when it comes to clean energy. They're building some really affordable electric cars. They're building solar, wind. They're just like it's really extensive. And part of the reason they can do that is that's how the government runs, and they can do that. And it just turns out that they're forging ahead on this, and other countries, the U.S. included, are just falling behind. But I think there has been a real reduction in emissions when you look at the last 10, 20 years. There is a shift that is happening. I think even like to consider this 4-year period here in the United States a speed bump, not a wall. But things are going to continue to move in the right direction, largely because, as we were talking about, cost and that matters. But there are some positive signs. I think if you read Bill Gates' memo, he talks about some of these and how actually we've seen temperature, heat, and extreme temperature deaths actually decreasing, despite what we might see in headlines. There's been much more progress, as I said, made on emissions than and then we always think about we got to get to X by this time. And when you take a step back and look at it, there's been a ton of progress made, and we hope that more progress will be made, certainly with electrifying a lot of our economy. So there's other countries that are leading the way during this period where the U.S. is taking a step back in terms of leadership, but there's certainly a lot more to do.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to do. That's where will you start from?
Where would you start from? Well, the good thing is actually we're not starting from scratch on anything. There's a lot of, one of the solutions to get around that transmission problem I talked about is co-locating, let's say, these advanced geothermal sites where you can put it next to a data center. Doesn't need to connect to a grid. It just provides electricity directly, and it's the easiest way to do it. So more of that is helpful. So there needs to be more funding in those areas. I think all these entrepreneurs working on different climate tech solutions, we need to keep finding the best ones and keep supporting those and pushing to just, decarbonize as many aspects of our economy, from transportation to buildings to, agriculture, you name it. Just continue to focus on the problems that are clear. We know what they are. They're not, that's part of the battle, is knowing what the challenges are. Right. And we just have to keep working towards them and continue to bring the cost curve down. And there's going to be trial and error. But through that, I think we'll emerge and look 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now and say we have made incredible progress over this period of time.
Good. That's a good point. I will call you up in 10 years and we'll check on this recording where the following episode.
I'll be back. Yes, I'll be back. You can hold me accountable if we don't make that progress.
Series with the same guests. There's definitely a plan in 10 years. Maybe they can do it in 3D and some kind of the characters talking to each other, holograms in a room or something like that. Or
I still hope human connection. I hope still matters then. I hope that's
I agree on that, of course, by campfire.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Chris, for this discussion, and good luck with all the crazy challenges on your road.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. If anyone wants to, follow along what's happening in the United States and just see what's going on, we have a newsletter. You can go to echocoms.com/nature, ECHOCOMMS.com/nature. Sign up for the newsletter. It's not a boring newsletter. We have a pretty clear point of view, as you might be able to tell from this conversation. But we try to keep it interesting, and we interview interesting people as well for just short, 10 minutes. We're not competing with this podcast, that's for sure.
We will add the link to the show notes, so you can don't need to make sure that you got all the letters correctly from Chris's message. Good. Thanks, and good luck.
Thank you, Tarma. Nice to speak with you.
If you like the show, subscribe and leave a good rating on the podcast platform of your choice. It would mean a world to us.
Hey everybody, Diego here from the Candle Power Hour and Candle Power Records. Together with Electrocast Records, we proudly present Imperial Highway, a California sampler. 15 singles tracked by artists all based in California. Every song on Imperial Highway is mastered to deliver. Rock and roll is back, and we got what you want. If you're craving new music, Imperial Highway hits the spot. Download Imperial Highway. Check us out at candlepowerrecords.com and listen to the Candle Power Hour on Electrocast.
Electrocast. Ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Do you have a business or a message you want to share with the world?
Well, now it's easier than ever with Electrocast. Hi, I'm Mark Netter.
And I'm Peter Rafelson. We're the founders of Electrocast Media.
Whether you want to start a new podcast or already have one, join Electrocast to grow your audience, monetize your content, and build your community.
With our simple sign-up, you get free promotion, world-class analytics, premium ads, and personal support.
Go to electrocast.com and join our community today.
Electrocast. Transform your influence.
Electrocast.